You're listening to another Ambitious Entrepreneur Network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, daily conversations with Christian entrepreneurs to inspire and empower Christian business owners to walk strongly in their faith, while build a thriving business that honors Him in every way. Now, over to your host, Anne Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of the Christian Entrepreneur Podcast. This is episode 152, and I'm your host, Anne Marie Cross, the podcasting queen. Now, my guest today says your past does not define you. It gives you definition. I want to say that again. Someone needs to hear this today. Your past, it doesn't define you. It gives you definition. And what you do with that, well, that is up to you. Joining me on today's show is Valencia Griffin-Wallace. Valencia is determined and is dedicated to putting the power back in women's empowerment. And she is an international speaker and an author of several books. Now, as the founder of Define You, Valencia has worked with and mentored many young adults and women to challenge the status quo and create strategies to find success personally and professionally. And she uses her Define You platform to educate, empower, and inspire audiences with life lessons, including action steps. Now, on today's show, Valencia is going to share your past is key to the vision that God has for your life. And many people get confused when looking for their purpose. She's going to talk about the power of no and how to use it. Many people don't know how to say no, which often keeps them from accomplishing their vision. And she's also going to talk about stop apologizing for how God made you by accepting who you are. Welcome to the show, Valencia.
Yay, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So very welcome. Me too. There are so much golden nuggets, I'm sure, and insights in what you're going to share today. And I think so many people, unfortunately, even Christians, get stuck in not recognizing the full potential that God has destined for them because of their past, because of what's happened for them. I want to give you an opportunity before we dive into that. How did you come to found Define You? Was it something that you felt called to, or did you always have an idea that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, it's a crazy story. I think when you are you're called or chosen, however you want to say it, to do a certain thing, if you're like me, you run from it, you know, because I was like, yeah, no, God, I don't want to start speaking. No.
Yeah.
But it was so intense, you know, if the only thing I could compare it to is like when you're pregnant and when that baby is ready to come, there's nothing you could say, no, stop, whatever, but that baby is coming. And then your job is to take care of it. So Define You was about taking all the work that I did over the years in defining who I am, because I'm like way different than anyone that I know. And that's what I want to encourage, you know, women and children to do is your path is different. So you have to define you, whatever that means to you, whether it's a stay-at-home mom or a CEO or whatever it is, you have to define you for you. And that's kind of always been my bold stance. I'm Valencia, hear me roar. And it's something about the everything I went through, I kind of took for granted, right? Because I'm thinking it's just how life is. But I didn't know it was strengthening me to help me define me. Because a lot of, you know, women don't have that strength. I looked at just like, you know, this is me every day. A lot of women didn't have that. And so it's about, that's how Define You came about. Like it's simple, like you define you. I don't care what society says, your parents, your DNA, whatever, you define you, whatever that means to you.
Yes. And I love the way in the introduction we said, you mentor and work with young adults and women to challenge the status quo and to create strategies to find success professionally and personally. Isn't it interesting how we can often let ourselves or allow ourselves to be defined by what others say about us or what they don't say about us or what the world says about us? And as we know, we're none of those things. It's God, who God has created us to be. And, he knitted us together in our mother's womb. So let's talk about your past is the key to the vision God has for your life. And many people, yes, get confused when looking for their purpose. Share more about this.
Well, I think we're always looking for our purpose. And some, like they say, you can't see the trees for the forest or something like that. My passion is writing, and it's something I started doing as a little girl. Like, I actually have a poem I wrote when I was 8 years old. But it never occurred to me that this is the key, Valencia. This is how you define you. This is how you change the world. It just never made sense, because the world says, when I was that age, you can't make money writing. So I put that aside and let the world and other people define me, and we do that a lot. People don't understand that, when you start cooking as a little girl and you love it, it makes you happy. And people will tell you, oh, that's nothing, or you can't make money doing that. And you lose that. And if the thing you enjoy doing is not what you're supposed to do, why are you here? And we forget that part. And speaking, well, I naturally was a talker. And when I found my voice, because I have a very funny accent depending on who I'm talking to, I lived kind of everywhere. So once I found my voice and embraced my little weird voice, my loud, boisterous voice, I knew I was supposed to use it. It's something I do naturally. And I naturally could look at people and talk to them, and I know something's going on. And nobody that knew me is surprised at what I do with the speaking and writing.
Probably think, I knew you were going to do that, or you were destined to do that.
Because I always gave real advice, but I'm a problem solver by nature. So when my friends would say, hey, this is going on, I would say, look, do you want me to listen? You want me to help you figure it out? Because sometimes people just want you to listen. And so when they said, okay, I want you to listen, then help me figure it out. And I could always tell, because we need to get to the root of it, the root of any problem, So, for instance, an unhappiness in life right now, and low self-esteem and those things may go back to your childhood when someone told you your gifts weren't valuable. And now it's affecting you at 30, 40, 50. So, so everything just kind of came full circle.
It's so important to recognize. Some of us may not have had someone that has said something to us as a very young child and may not be able to recall that. But I think from what I'm hearing from you is that even though someone might have spoken over your life at that young age, there may still be this pull towards, for you, writing. I'm sure that you love to write and to spend time where you're able to, your thoughts flowing. So someone may be sitting here listening or watching and thinking, you know what, I really feel this is something that I love. It's quite a passion, but for some reason, there's something that's stopping me from doing that. And as you say, it may be because someone one time has shared, unfortunately, a comment that is holding you back. I remember, and I still will often recall my auntie saying this, I would have been no older than 3 and I visited Holland, and I remember her saying to me, it was my aunt, my tanterie, they call her, she's Dutch, and she said, you're going to be a writer one day, Anne-Marie. And I still, at 3, I can still, and I do enjoy writing, and journaling and everything, but that even at that young age, that can make such an impact. That was a positive impact, of course. Had she said, oh, you can't write very well, I'm sure that would certainly have impacted me too. So talk about the power of no, because I'm sure you hear a lot of women, we struggle with saying no, don't we?
Yeah.
And how to use it.
I tell people, and this is a true story because I have my baby book to prove it. My first word was not mama, daddy. My first word was no.
Really?
That was literally my first word. And I hold on to that so dear and so close, because see, if I say no to you or whatever it is, I could say yes to me. And as women, we want to be compliant. We want to be loved. We want everybody to like us and appreciate us and pat us on our back. But at the end of the day, just like with children, respect lasts. So you're going to respect me better if I say, no, I'm not going to do that, or versus me doing it and not doing it right, or doing it and I have a nasty attitude with you, or something of that. I think a lot of friendships would still be around if people just say no. No, I'm not going to cook today because everybody is in the house, and my house is grown. They hear no a lot in my house. No, I'm not interested in going to that event. No, I'm not going to do this, and it takes a while. Like in my private group on Facebook, I tell them they should be using the word no at least once a day. If you're not using the word no once a day, look at how you feel at the end of the day, because you've compromised something you've wanted. And then a lot of times people don't realize, and they'll say, well, I don't have time to work on my business, or I don't have time to exercise, or I don't have time for this, and this. Well, how much time could you save if you say no? People think I'm so productive, because I have different businesses and pets and everything else. Like, Valencia, how you get so much stuff done? I prioritize, and prioritizing starts with telling other people no.
Yeah. So true. And I think something else that we often do is we then feel that we have to justify that no. And it sounds to me like you would be a person that would just confidently go, no, and whereas we would go, because of this and this and this and this. And it's kind of like, let your no be no and your yes be yes. Yes.
Right. I agree 100%. See, when you say no and give a reason, it takes away from your no. It's like watering down, like soda or something like that. You're adding water to it. So you still said it, but it's not as, not as firm, and sometimes you do need to be firm, because if you're not, they're going to come back and ask you again. And I tell people all the time, sometimes people will ask you stuff because they've asked everybody else. They know that you're going to stop doing whatever you're doing and you're going to do it. So you put your goals off another 5 years because you can't say no. No is effective in parenting, in relationships, in your personal and professional life. You should be saying no, because everything is not for you or for you to do.
Yeah, so true. I remember having a conversation with someone a while ago. It was quite some time ago, and she would often drop everything she was doing for one or another family member who had inadvertently done something and were in trouble again. And they always knew that they could call on her, which was a good thing, but it was also a bad thing, because as you say, if you continue to put out the fires, you're not actually empowering them to take charge of yourself. In some instances, you can actually enable people. So if someone is struggling with the ability to say no, what are one or two things like get over yourselves, get over ourselves is probably a really good thing to realize. But what are some things, because a lot of people struggle with this?
I would say the first thing that they could do is right now, as they're listening, just scream out no as loud as they can. I don't care where they are. Just scream, embrace that feeling, internalize that feeling of how powerful that feels to say that. You know, I'm a very action-oriented person. So I say no right now, just for no reason. And the next thing I would say is this: make it a point, write it on a postcard or something of that nature. And you have to use this one no every day. And at least say no once a day, and then it becomes a habit, and it's empowering.
Yes.
And it's not about being selfish. It's about prioritizing. And a lot of women, you know, we don't say no, and our health is affected. You know, a doctor friend of mine, I think it said like 1 in 3 women die of heart disease. I think that's the statistic here in America. How many lives could have been saved had this woman said no and took care of herself? Yeah. So it's not just, you know, to make $1 million, $1 billion business. It's not just, you know, for whatever. No is a healthy word. No is for your health. No may save your life. Because women don't take time for themselves.
And something I'm sure when you see around young adults, often what can happen, and this may happen with not so young adults too, is the community that we hang around with may try and encourage us to do something or participate in an activity that we really don't feel comfortable with, or in for most of us who are watching and listening, I'm assuming we are all Christians, that really challenge our faith, you know, and that against core values. And in that instance, we have to just go firmly no. And you know, if there is feedback from them that is negative, is just to allow it just to not really encroach on us. And because it's important, isn't it, to be able to say no firmly and with confidence, and know that that is the decision, and that's it, final.
I definitely agree. There is the first step is the power of no. The second thing to learn is the power of no response. So when you say no, and they do come back with feedback, but it'll only take you 5 minutes, or you know how to do this better than me, or you know, that's so selfish of you, you don't respond. Because if you respond, you're justifying your no. So you might as well have said yes. Yeah. And we need to learn that, not only you know, in our personal and, you know, in our professional life or whatever, but even when it comes to raising children.
So true.
You know, I have a 21-year-old son. He works, he's in the military, and he goes to college. He could tell anybody how many no's. He'd still hear no today, you know, but that was a balance for him because he understood firmly that mom meant business. Yeah. And that helped him make wise decisions when it came to life and his friends. He knew what he wasn't going to do, and he would say no.
That's so good. Mum, can you iron my shirt? I'm just thinking of my son. All right, because I'm no good at it. But imagine, well, here's a first time to start.
Yeah. Yes,
so
ma'am.
True in all areas of our life, and especially in business. I love that you also are sharing this, because it's so true. Stop apologizing for how God made us. Just accept who we are. Speak into this, because this is going to be insightful for so many.
Well, I'm going to tell you how I became the Valencia you see today. Speaking and writing books and doing everything else. I grew up and my mom was a drug addict. And so by default, by society standards, I already had all these statistics on me with how I was going to grow up and how I was going to be and everything else. And I chose different. So, you know, I joined the gang when I was in 6th grade. I was a young mom. So like every excuse a woman would have to, you know, not do whatever. I'm sorry, excuse me. You know, I could pretty much do a checklist. So, I apologize. So the strength and the boldness that people see in me, people used to tell me that, you know, you're intimidating, you know, and you need to soften your voice a little bit, or maybe you shouldn't do this and do that, or better yet, who do you think you are to do what you do? You know, we've all heard that. And I pretty much just was like, God made me like this. You know, I stopped questioning God, why I didn't have like a soft, dainty voice, and why, you know, like, why this? And then, you know, I realized he made me bold as a lion for a reason. And so when I go speak, and I'm all, you know, ladylike, very much the Southern Belle, you know, I'm here in Louisiana, and then I tell women or men or whoever's listening my story, it empowers them. Hey, I don't have any excuses, you know. And I tell people, you stop apologizing for that. Stop apologizing for wanting to do exactly what you're here to do. You know, my mom was killed when I was 17. So when I tell you that checklist of excuses of why this and why that, and it's so crazy how life comes full circle. Over this summer, I don't know if y'all have the DARE program there. It's like a drug abuse resistance education that they teach kids in school. Yes. It's like, it's been around like since I was a kid. I took the class. Well, I'm speaking at their conference over the summer. Wow. So when you talk about walking in your purpose, and stop apologizing for that, you know, because people ask you, well, how did you do this? How do you do? I'm true to me. I don't apologize. So, and they've seen the videos. They know how I speak. They know, you know, everything else. And so there I go. And I'm not apologizing for that. And if women and men are true to who they are, you know, I stopped apologizing for being a young mom. I had my son, I was 20 for like a month, and here he is. I was not a wife. I wasn't wife material. I was barely mother material. But I stopped apologizing for being a young unwed mother and gave birth to something that sets examples for 21-year-olds. He has so much in him, like he doesn't know yet, you know? And so, and I tell him, you don't apologize because, you know, you got a loud mom, you know, or, you know, who you are.
Yeah, so true.
And that's how you get there.
Yeah, so often, and many of us will go through life wanting to be different, how do I stand out? And I can just imagine God saying, well, you know what? In your case, Valencia, I've given you this voice that when you walk into a room and you speak, there is no shadow of a doubt who that voice belongs to, you know, and that attitude. And I think every single one of us, and I love that you've said, you know, our past will create in us and build in us character and strength that we can then go and impart and share with other people who are going through the same seasons that we have lived through, and, you know, can share insights with them to support them. And, you know, if we're apologizing for any of our characteristics or our strengths, or we're not giving ourselves permission to step forward and just become who God has created us to become, then, and there's nothing worse than trying to be someone that you are not. It's exhausting, isn't it? Because imagine if you try to tone down your voice and speak softer. By the end of that speaking presentation, I'm sure you just feel like exhausted. Your energy is drained. Do you find that to be true too?
I remember because I have a radio show, and I remember when I first started listening to other people and how they talked. And so for like one show, I said, okay, I'm going to change it up and I'm going to try to do it a different way. It wasn't my way, it was somebody else's way. And my husband was listening to the show, and he was like, he just came in the room afterwards, and he was like, and I said, I know. He just shook his head at me, and I was like, I know, like, I hated that show. I think I went back and deleted it or something. Yeah. So we all try to fit somebody else's shoes because we think, you know, those shoes may be more comfortable or easier to walk in, or these shoes are tried and true. But what we forget is new shoes are made every day. Mm-hmm. You may be that new shoe, you know, and you have to embrace it no matter how difficult it is. And there's something unique, you know, if God wanted us all to be alike, we would all look alike, talk alike, be in the same space, everything else. And people don't think about that. Yeah, true. People don't think about that. No. You know?
And I think that all really aligns so greatly with what you've spoken about, because sometimes we're ashamed of our past, yet there's lessons in everything, and how we use that to move forward, to empower others. There's no shame. As we know, Jesus, you know, when we ask for forgiveness, it is gone. So stop carrying that guilt and shame around with you, and it can become the story that sets someone else free, because you've shared that story of hope and possibility, that, wow, if he or she has gone through that and can get through and now is doing this, maybe it's possible for me. And so by not stepping forward, someone's listening or watching today, by not stepping forward and just embracing who you are, that means someone or lots of someones who are struggling, they're going to continue to struggle when you've got that message that will seed hope and possibility. Valencia, how can people find out more about Define You? What's the best way for them to connect with you?
I would say the easiest way probably would be go to my website, ValenciaGWallace.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, all social media at Valencia G. Wallace. Or really, if you like type in hashtag Define You, it's going to lead you to me in some way. In some way. Definitely.
Right. And of course, we'll put all of those links to connect with Valencia on our show notes, ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE152. Valencia, one of the things that I'm doing for all of my guests, and I'll be honored to do that for you, is to close the show with a word of prayer. May I do that for you today as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Fantastic. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to speak with Valencia today and just be reminded of how important it is for us to stop apologizing for who you have created us to be, and some of the unique characteristics and qualities or the sound of our voice. Father, that was with purpose and intention created in us so that we could share that with the world and take our message and really impact the lives of many. Father, we just want to uphold Valencia and the work that she's doing through Define You. Will you continue to bless the programs, the young adults and the women that she is working? Father, we just ask for your continued blessing and favor on her work. We ask this in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and being a role model for how important it is to be able to say no so that we can protect, you know, our little space and what we're creating, as well as just recognizing that every one of us is being uniquely created. And once we embrace that, then we can certainly accept who we are in through Christ and go out and continue to share the message, whatever that might be in the world. So thank you for being that role model for us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, you know, if people don't get anything else, I hope they get that your past doesn't define you. It literally gives you definition, because a lot of times we forget that before Goliath, there was a whole lion and a bear. So your past is for you to learn from.
Yes. So true. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, brought to you by BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. Changing the world one message at a time. Do you feel called to influence real change with your message? Join our supportive community of like-minded influencers, thought leaders, and disruptors at www.bethedifferencemovement.com. That's bethedifferencemovement.com.